There's a lot of people that are taking things that Martin Freeman and Peter Jackson have said about Rings of Power recently, and they're trying to spin it in some sort of positive light, but you just can't, okay? Rings of Power is going to be a disaster. It is already a complete disgrace based on the trailers alone and the things that the showrunners have said. The showrunners continue to say absolutely horrific things about what their plans are for this show. Things like they want to create the novel that Tolkien never wrote, which in itself is a complete pile of garbage in what they are saying. So let's see what Martin Freeman has to say here. Martin Freeman addresses potential Bilbo return in Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power, which, by the way, does not make any sense whatsoever. Why the actual heck would Bilbo be in Rings of Power? The only way that they could really do that is if they decided to go a route where they made it kind of like told from the perspective of Bilbo, which in itself would also not make very much sense. Martin Freeman addressed reprising his role as Bilbo in the Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power, saying it depends on who's behind it. Now let's see what he actually has to say here. In an interview with Metro, Freeman supposes he wouldn't consider reprising his role as Bilbo in the Rings of Power, although he doesn't entirely count it out, depending on the purpose of his character's appearance and its ability to blend with the current series, but it ultimately depends on the minds behind the show. Freeman also alludes to the lasting storytelling of Tolkien, saying that the Lord of the Rings stories are likely to be retold for hundreds of years. So, and I can tell you one thing, Rings of Power is not going to be remembered in 100 years. It won't even be remembered in 50 years. Probably not even 20 or 10, besides being a complete joke, okay? Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy will be heralded for decades to come. Rings of Power will be forgotten. So this is what Martin Freeman has to say. I wish them well. I hope it's good. Like, I want everything to be good. And it's interesting because this is very much reminiscent to what Peter Jackson said recently about Rings of Power as well, just having a positive attitude and wishing them well. But then he continues with this. Whether I would do it again, it would really depend on who was doing it and why, I suppose. If it didn't look conspicuous and if it wasn't jarring, then maybe so. But anything that pulled the viewer out and made them go, well, that's a different version, that might be a bit weird. But as with all those things, depends on who the minds are behind it. That is absolutely 100% correct, and you can see already that there are some allusions that he's making here to the backlash that Rings of Power has received from fans who are looking at the trailers and all of the promotional materials, everything for Rings of Power, and they're going, that is different, and by that they mean it's not Tolkien. And that, I think, is what Martin Freeman is alluding to here with Rings of Power and how he would not want to be involved with this because it isn't Tolkien. And the fact is that Rings of Power is receiving a lot of backlash right now, and that is no secret. I'm sure that Martin Freeman is probably aware of that, and I have a feeling that he would not want to have anything to do with this series at all, and I don't blame him whatsoever because it looks like complete trash, and Martin Freeman is 100% correct about this. Now, there's obviously a lot of interpretations that we could take away from what he's saying here, but to me, what it sounds like he is really trying to distance himself from wanting to be involved in this show at all, and a lot of that is based on the fact that he's implying some of the horrible things that they are doing with Rings of Power. With that being said, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe. I'd appreciate that a lot, and I will talk to you all in another video very soon.